Taves once again, doing a Halloween Moviecase podcast. Unfortunately, I can't think of a clever title, so this is unfortunately the Spooktacular for 2013. Um, it just wanted to make a couple of quick notes here. I have been sick as a dog for the past week plus. Um, Basically, I caught a cold, and I'm not sure how. It was either in a movie theater or in a basement of a church. I think it was a basement of a church because the woman behind the counter at the little shop that was open in the basement of the church was sick. So I'm blaming it on her that I got a cold, and that's what started the whole damn thing. Um, and that was a couple of weeks ago. Back in October now, mid October, we're talking. And I was sick for like a couple of weeks with that. And then, uh, just as I was getting over that, I got a hit of the flu slash food poisoning. I went to Ruby Tuesday with my parents after going to see uh, the movie. Crap. This is why you write stuff down before a podcast. What did I see? I saw Escape Plan, the Schwarzenegger, uh, Stallone film. I almost said De Niro. I knew that wasn't right. Anyway, it it wasn't that good. The script was amateurish at best, and which is kind of weird because Sly worked on it a bit. But also it was like very no brainer. There's no wit to it whatsoever until the last few minutes of the movie. If you can make it that far, I won't tell you what it is because it's a funny one liner towards the end delivered by Schwarzenegger. But outside of that, it's just a piss poor movie. Uh, which is funny because like I was talking to somebody about it, that somebody being Thomas, and his viewpoint was, oh, it's a good brainless film. I liked it, and so forth and so on. And then I just started like deconstructing it, like, going, this was bad, that was bad, CGI was over the top, so forth and so on. And by the end of my list of complaints about it, he's going, yeah, I agree, it was a bad movie. It's like, well, then why the hell did you say it was a good movie in the first place? I get into that conversation with a ton of people. It pisses me off when it happens because it's like, well, if you're easily swayed, why are you saying, I liked it in the first place? So anyway, that that said, I was sick. Um, uh, After going to Ruby Tuesday after seeing that movie, from Sunday night basically, but I didn't actually start throwing up, and this is where I know I had the food poisoning and the flu. I won't tell you how I know that, but basically I was throwing up between Monday and um, Thursday of this week, which is like just before Halloween on, what was it, the 27th through Halloween itself, so October 31st, 2013. Just to give you context as to when this was recorded, this was recorded on November 1st, which is a Friday. So anyway, that's my disclaimer. If I sound lousy, there's a great reason for it. I've been lousy for the past couple of weeks. Um, so anyway, 3 weeks really. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now. Which, if I'm lucky, this means I won't get sick later in the season, but I'm never lucky, so let's not even address that. So anyway, that said, I had planned to do a Halloween podcast, and my apologies to anybody that was looking forward to hearing that before Halloween. I really was looking forward to doing it. I was thinking, okay, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna record it right before Halloween. It's gonna go up. It's gonna be there in time for Halloween with all the file editing and whatnot that I was gonna do. It was going to be, a fun little podcast. I was thinking I could get my dad on it. Well, clearly I cannot get my dad on any podcast because he doesn't know what a podcast is, and he thinks I'm a moron for putting these out on the internet. So I'm just going to give credit where credit's due once again and say that you will probably not be hearing him anytime soon unless I can change his mind and publicly shame him into it. That said, um, the the Halloween stuff for me started off just at the beginning of October, looking at all the Vincent Price movies that were coming out at that point, and there were some that were not horror films that were being released on Blu-ray and limited editions and stuff like Leave Her to Heaven from I think it was 1945 or 47, somewhere in there. Anyway, I think it was 44 possibly. Anyway, it's not a horror film. It's not that great either. A lot of good character actors, but just not a very good film. Uh, so there were a few of those being released, and there's the riff tracks, public domain colorized version of the full screen edition of House on Haunted Hill that you can get on Blu-ray, obviously. Whether or not you think that's worth your investment, or if you want to wait and get the actual film itself, like I do, in widescreen, black and white, then you might want to wait for it. But that said, there's a few good Vincent Price films that came out this year that I want to talk about. But also, I had asked on Facebook uh, what were some of people's favorite horror films, and I was put into or requested to join for that matter. Somebody sent me do you want to join this? I said, sure. Horror movie group for the month of October. And it was fun to go through and see what people were watching. I don't really participate in other people's groups per se on Facebook just because I feel like I'm the kiss of death for anything. Because I have such, offbeat taste of liking the old stuff more than most of the current stuff. So, in that regard, I try to stay unvocal about it, but in doing podcasts, I have to be very vocal and not so much quiet. So you will hear me sound off on a few things in regards to movie quality and stuff on this podcast. That said, I had asked on my group page for podcasts um, what are some of people's favorite Vincent Price films, let alone horror films. And only one person responded, Shannon. So I wanted to say thank you to Shannon for responding, and yes, I agree with you, Shannon, that Nightmare on Elm Street, that series was good. However, I'm sure you will probably agree with this, but you might cut the remake some slack. I do not. I liked the 1984 to 2003 series with Robert Englund, the guy who played Freddy Krueger in the films, for those who did not know that by this point. Uh, so uh, I liked that series. It's fun, campy, and it can be creepy, if not downright horrifying at times. Uh, so it's a good series of films, and you can't really ask for much more than that from a 80s and 90s series of what's potentially called slasher film, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, although I think it's a little bit headier than that. So anyway, that was that series. However, the remake in 2010, I thought was just a rehash of some of the stuff from each of the movies and wasn't all that good. The characters weren't any more intelligent. They still had the same pitfalls of, having sleep problems. They were all pissy, didn't really root for anybody, so forth and so on. Just, pretty bad. Uh, but anyway, good news is I did not have to pay to see that one. It was on TV. Anyway, that said, I have stayed away from horror remakes overall for that. Another dozer was one called Friday the 13th. The first one was not that good. They spawned a series of films that also intersected with um, the Nightmare on Elm Street series. That one I did like, but I did not like the other ones that were in the Friday the 13th series. And I did not like the remake of that either, incidentally. So that, in caps and cases, whatever you want to say, uh, the slasher film genre overall. The Saw franchise I liked, and the Halloween series I liked, uh, but I was not a big fan of the slasher film genre overall. I think there was too many films made in that regard, and not all of them were good. The Chucky series, better known as Child's Play 2, Child's Play 3, Bride of Chucky, and Seed of Chucky, and now Curse of Chucky, um, I thought were fun as well. The most fun being Seed of Chucky and Bride of Chucky and Child's Play out of that series, but again, overall pretty good. Now, you could also make the argument that the slasher film genre technically started with a movie called Black Christmas back in the 70s, and that it depends on your taste. Some people really like it, other people really don't. I'm in the middle ground. I do not think it is a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that it was the first of its kind. Uh, it was directed by Bob Clark, who did um, uh, uh, Porky's and Porky's 2. He did Murder by Decree. He did A Christmas Story. Um, he did a couple of other films. I think Underdog was one of his last ones, if I recall. Um, Baby Geniuses 2. Fairly decent, prolific, somewhat independent, yeah, low budget, definitely, filmmaker that unfortunately passed away in 2006 with his son in a car crash. They were getting ready to go somewhere. Um, so that was my first year of college, believe it or not, that they died. Very sad. Incidentally, if you hear me pause slightly for any particular length of time, I am taking a drink of water. Unlike most podcasts that uh, I do, I normally do with booze or something. I cannot do that with this one because I am just coming off of being sick. So I am hydrating myself with water and various other drinks, Gatorade, Pedialyte, and the likes thereof. So, that said, um, I am not drinking, so I'm not in a very good mood in terms of being able to tell whimsical jokes. However, because this is a Halloween podcast for all intents and purposes, I would like to tell a story that I thought was kind of amusing when I first read it. This is not a very well reported story. You can find it on the internet if you do a little bit of digging. I don't know how much of it is true or not, but it's kind of a fun story. I like to think it's true. Um, Frank Sinatra reportedly paid for the funeral of Bela Lugosi. Bela Lugosi, of course, being what everybody thinks of as the original Dracula, if they discount Nosferatu, 1922, with Max Schreck. So, if you think of Bela Lugosi as the first Dracula, or at least one of the first screen vampires that there was, um, you would, I would at least think that somebody other than me would have had this thought. But why is it not listed among Frank Sinatra's many achievements that he helped bury one of the first screen vampires? Uh, anyway, that aside, um, I would like to point out that uh, Bela Lugosi died, according to Ed Wood, the movie, the Tim Burton directed biopic of Edward D. Wood Jr.'s life. In the movie, is played by he being Ed Wood is played by Johnny Depp, and Martin Landau, who won an Oscar, as did the makeup, played the aged and impoverished Bela Lugosi. Now that brings me to my point of Bela Lugosi died in poverty, if you believe this film. If you believe his children, he died, or his daughter, he died. Um, Not as wealthy as he was when he started his career, but he wasn't flat ass broke. Um, he had a little something left. Not much, but he had a little something left. So let's go with that, because that's his family talking. So, anyway, Bela Lugosi um, was a actor, and he played Dracula. And when he died, he asked to be buried in the Dracula cape, the one that he had. And that was granted. Ed Wood saw to that. Now, there's a funny story about Peter Lorre and Vincent Price who went to um, the funeral of Bela Lugosi, and they got up to the casket, open casket, and they're standing there. And Peter Lorre, who was known for having a devastating wit, according to Vincent Price and others that knew him, Jerry Lewis, etc. Again, this is one of the few times that you'll hear me quote Lewis without insulting him. Ugh, the restraint. Anyway, it, Peter Lorre had devastating wit, so he went and it does a little aside to Vincent Price, and he goes, "You don't think we should drive a snake through his heart, do you? Just in case." And apparently Vincent Price lost it and was laughing his ass off. Wrong time to do it in the church when somebody's being, eulogized and shit. Anyway, that's kind of a funny story, I thought. So, I'd share that with you. That's about the extent of my interjecting humor into this thing. Um, the rest of this is going to be pretty cut and dry, I'm afraid. I will now praise Vincent Price, which works nicely off of that story. Vincent Price made a bunch of horror films in his career, not all of them good, unfortunately. For a specifically sad ending to a career, you can check out From a Whisper to a Scream, which was his last decent horror film. Prior to that, you could look at a movie that came to Blu ray called The Monster Club, 1981. Uh, John Carradine is also in that. Not a good film, once again. The basic premise is that a reporter wants an exclusive scoop, and Vincent Price, being a vampire, spoilers, goes and brings him to this monster club where everybody in it is a monster of some kind, werewolf, zombie, vampire, or whatever. And he's allowed exclusive access to gather his story and so forth and so on. Not a very good movie. So anyway, that's the extent of that film. It's not very good, but you take a look at it. There's also another film from about the same time, maybe. No, it's the same time. A couple of years later, I think it was. It's called Bloodbath at the House of Death. It is not on Blu-ray. It's on YouTube if you want to watch it, like I did, without paying for it, or maybe you can find it on a streaming site and pay a little bit, something, not too much, because it's not a very good film. Vincent Price, who was a great actor, when you consider he came from the stage, yes, some of his stuff was hammy, admittedly so, but that's part of the fun of it. And it was funny at times, and other times it was downright terrifying if you're in the right frame of mind for it. Or just weird. But Price, who was a very good actor and came up through the ranks as an actor in a time when you could not get much of a damn into a film um, because of censorship, he is reduced to swearing his head off in this bloodbath at the House of Death. And it's kind of funny to watch because it's, all these, like, really poorly lines, like, "I'm on fire, you schmuck," from Vincent Price. And, some of it's funny watching it, but it's just horrible at the same time because it's a man who's talented and could make you laugh or make you feel a little creeped out. Uh, Without such language for so many years, reduced to cursing his head off for laughs in this horror comedy, if you will. So you can check those out for the sad end of Vincent Price's career. Of course, he did a magnificent job in Ed. No, not Ed Wood. Edward Scissorhands. There we go. 1991, I believe it was, and he had a very small part because he had Parkinson's. That the part was cut short, but he did a fantastic job, and that's the way to remember him is being the inventor of Edward Scissorhands, once again played by Johnny Depp um, in a Tim Burton film. So anyway, great film overall. Definitely worth a look if you want to remember Edward Scissorhands. That said, Vincent Price did a bunch of films that came to Blu-ray this year, aside from The Monster Club, 1981. Which, by the way, in some cases you might find that that's rated R, rated PG, or unrated, depending on where you go. Nobody's really sure on that, apparently. So, uh, you can, for better Vincent Price films, first off, this one had its origins in 1933. 32, if you consider that's when it was made. But a film called House of Wax, 1953, was done in 3D, and it was one of the first 3D films, and is the most popular of the era's 3D films, a status which it retains today, quote unquote, under Malton's Movie Guide. And I have to agree with this. I just saw the Blu-ray 3D version of it. It's also available on 2D Blu-ray as part of that pack with the 3D. And as part of that package, you will also get Mystery of the Wax Museum, 1933, which is the original of the story. And I believe one of the Barrymores was in that. So anyway, it's a good little gem from 1933, early two color Technicolor, fairly decent. Although there's a odd sense of humor about it. It was noted as being in the first horror film with a contemporary urban setting. But that was back in the day. And then it was a period piece by 1953, and that was the Vincent Price version. Anyway, it's a pretty good film. The basic story is that a wax sculptor or sculptor gets burned in a fire and exacts revenge on his partner while trying to recreate the fame he had that he thought was coming to him at the time that he was originally sculpting by using dead bodies, spoilers, for the basis for his wax works. A very good film. It was remade mostly in title only in 2005 with Paris Hilton. Um, that was the second movie of her career where she took a pole to the head. I would just like to point that out as the sole reason to see that. Anyway, Um, only that time she died. That's the difference. Um, the next Vincent Price film comes from 1958, and that is called The Fly. This was remade in, I believe it was the late 70s, with Jeff Goldblum, or 80s anyway, with Jeff Goldblum. And then they had a sequel to that called The Fly 2. Now, The Fly, 1958, also had Return of the Fly with Vincent Price, and Curse of the Fly followed that. However, Curse of the Fly did not have Vincent Price, and Return of the Fly has yet to be released to Blu-ray. So that said, The Fly, which is very simply put, um, a man accidentally mixes himself with a fly, uh, and it has disastrous results. That is a fun film from 1958 that you could check out. For the sake of time and my stomach, I am not going to go through the story of each of the rest of these. Most of them should be apparent to anybody that has read Edgar Allan Poe's works, um, with the exception of a few. So, anyway, there is The House of Usher from 1960. It's also known as Fall of the House of Usher. That comes from Shout Factory, direct to Blu-ray. It is also on DVD from MGM, and that is packaged along with The Pit and the Pendulum, or Pit and the Pendulum, 1961. The Haunted Palace, 1963. Mask of the Red Death, 1964, which are all Edgar Allan Poe based um, adaptions, although The Haunted Palace is partially based on Poe, partially based on another story. And there is The Witchfinder General as part of that package as well, and The Abominable Dr. Phibes. Now, The Witchfinder General comes from 1968, The Abominable Dr. Phibes is 1971. The Abominable Dr. Phibes is rated PG-13 according to the Blu-ray release. It is rated R according to the DVD MGM release. And it is unrated according to some people. So, once again, people, get your stories straight when it comes to rating of films. I'm going with PG-13. The Witchfinder General, and House of Wax come with a GP rating. GP being General Public, also known as PG. So you could say it either way. The Witchfinder General is also known as the Conqueror Worm, and that was only to use a few lines of Poe's poem, The Conqueror Worm, at the beginning and end of the movie. And those alternate opening and closings are available on the Blu-ray for those who are interested in that. You can get the different cuts of the films on Turner Classic Movies in their entirety if you want the film with two different kinds of opening and closings. So, that said, I have gone through the Vincent Price stuff. Now, aesthetically, I would like to point out that House of Wax, if we cycle back to that, It is almost pristine, perfect 3D. There is one image of ghosting that occurs towards the end of the film. Spoilers. A scene where the woman who knows that the dead body of her friend is encased in wax is running around trying to escape Vincent Price and is about ready to find out for sure that she is right about this. She he runs from one side of the room to the other, and in one shot, when she runs to the left, there is a stairway with a railing, and that railing has what's called ghosting, which is kind of like a double image. Now, if you're seeing it in 3D, what it is it's the film is in 3D, but there's another image of it there that it isn't sunk up with the rest of the picture. It's called ghosting because it looks ghost-like. It is see-through and not in the right place. So anyway, that happened. That was the only mistake, and it's 5 seconds on screen. It's not that big of a deal if you think about it overall, and be happy to hear the report that the Wizard of Oz 3D is perfect 3D. Perfect. And I know that people that were worried about that conversion. It's perfect. I knew it was going to be good. Anyway, that's another podcast. So, anyway, just wanted to give you that as a freebie. Now, Vincent Price, again, these other films are in HD and the colors are pretty good and the sharpness and contrast are fairly good, if not great. And they can be enjoyed aesthetically and for what they are as far as stories and whatnot. Some of them are a little bit better than others. Haunted Palace is kind of a weakling, but the other ones are fairly good, if not great. Same thing with the Witchfinder General. And Abominable Dr. Phibes are the ones that people usually complain about. Now, Dr. Phibes was followed in 1972 by Dr. Phibes Rises Again. This is not available on Blu-ray, but should be checked out as a companion piece to the Abominable Dr. Phibes. Also, if you like Vincent Price films, you may like The Last Man on Earth, 1964. You may like, and that's another sci-fi film of sorts, based on Last Man on Earth, which was, Last Man on Earth was based on I Am Legend. And I Am Legend was done with Will Smith, obviously, but also prior to that, it was done as the Omega Man. Not a very good film, once again, but interesting, and people of my parents' generation like it somewhat more than I did. Anyway, that said, you may be interested in a film or a couple of films that Vincent Price did that were pretty good. 1973's Theater of Blood. Basically, Vincent Price is a ham actor who believes that he should have gotten the Critics Circle Award for his brilliant performances in Shakespeare's plays over the course of that year. And the critics did not agree, so he takes them out one by one, and using Shakespeare's methods of torture and death. Quite fun as a movie and a tour de force for Price, as pointed out by Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show when he was promoting that back in the 70s. You can find that clip on YouTube or for proper licensing, go through the Johnny Carson estate website, etc. Also, there is Madhouse from 1974 that was with Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Vincent Price did Scream and Scream Again together, and Peter Cushing and Vincent Price did Madhouse together, as well as the aforementioned other film, Scream and Scream Again. They're both fun horror films. Madhouse is basically a TV doctor notorious for murders and whatnot. Dr. Death. Uh, it, it has a nervous breakdown when he finds his fiance murdered on his the eve of his wedding. And so years later, he is convinced to go back and play the role again. And will he or won't he? And is he losing his mind again when people around him start dying? It's a good film, as I say. I like it. It's fun, and it goes hand in hand with Theater of Blood in terms of fun stuff. I recommended these to Thomas last night for his Halloween viewing. He instead decided to watch Carrie and some other film that I've yet to find out about from him. The original Carrie, not the remake that is currently in theaters. I talked him out of seeing that on the premise of being able to see the original film first and decide for himself. This leads into a bone that I have to pick with him, but I will do that on my own time. That said, on a brilliant note, and I mean brilliant in a sarcastic way, I was just looking at the calendar the other day, and Thomas is coming home for the holidays soon because there's Thanksgiving coming up. So I will probably be recording a podcast with him at that point and be doing a little update on that stuff. His fiance is supposed to join us that night for dinner and a movie. I believe we're gonna watch The Great Gatsby 3D that night, and I will be watching with him during the day, possibly a couple of films, at least The Bishop's Wife, because he's yet to see that, from 1947, Cary Grant, David Niven, and I think it was Loretta Young, if I remember. And another movie called Silver Linings Playbook. And if we don't get the Silver Linings Playbook, we will definitely do that in December, and we will podcast about those films when we have seen them, of course. Also, I just got a few films that are not horror but are films nonetheless, and I look forward to watching them because I've not seen them yet. Tilly and Gus, starring W.C. Fields from the Universal Vault series, DVD manufactured on demand collection, 58 minutes from 1933. Looks pretty good. Basically, W.C. Fields plays a card shark. Mississippi, W.C. Fields and Bing Crosby and Joan Bennett from 1935. That's an hour and 14 minutes long, and it comes from the same Universal Vault series DVD on demand. Turner Classic Movies released a box set of films, which I now proudly own. Million Dollar Lakes, 1932, Belle of the 90s, 1934, Arson Models, and Souls at Sea, 1937. Belle of the 90s is Mae West. Million Dollar Lakes is W.C. Fields. Artists and Models, Jack Benny. Souls at Sea, he is Gary Cooper. There are other film actors in these films that are classic actors and good in their own right. I'm seeing on the cover of this thing George Raft and Martha Ray, to name a couple. Um, I would suspect that the W.C. Fields film, Million Dollar Lakes, will have some laughs. So, anyway, you will hear me bring these up probably over the next few Moviecase podcasts as I watch them. Um, they promise to be entertaining, to say the least, as usual. So, with that, I would like to wrap up by saying a few things in terms of production of podcasts. Um, I am currently looking forward to doing some podcasts with Thomas, and I've got one in the works for December. I've not started writing it yet, but it will be scripted or partially scripted anyway. It is a holiday it, special, um, teaching Junior, the mean widow kid, about Christmas. I get to title that skit. If you have any suggestions, feel free to write them down. Send them to me via email if you have my email. If you don't, by all means, comment on the Facebook group page for this, or comment on YouTube if you listen to this on YouTube and do not have access to the Facebook page. The Facebook page is an open group. Feel free to add yourself if you are so inclined, if I have not added you for one reason or another. So, that said, I look forward to doing the um, holiday scripted podcast. I look forward to doing a few more Moviecase podcasts. I don't know how many more at this point because I do not have an um, exact thing. Also, I will be having some breaking news as far as Tez Family News goes on the next Timing is Everything podcast. Yes, this is a series of podcasts where I talk about funny or strange things that happen to me, or oddly timed things that happen to me, and or family members that affect me one way or another. And as I say, there will be some breaking news on that next time I do it, which will probably be with Thomas in November. So it will probably be a short one, so keep an eye out for that. I think you will have fun with it um, to some extent. And let's see, what else? Coming up in movies, I will be hopefully seeing Las Vegas, which just opened today in theaters everywhere, November 1st, 2013. I look forward to seeing that. I look forward to seeing The Hobbit, um, Part 2, The Desolation of Smaug. I'm also looking forward to a movie called The Hunger Games 2 Catching Fire. that comes out soon. There are another couple of films, Grudge Match, The Wolf of Wall Street, and um, American Hustle, that all come out around Christmas that I'm looking forward to. Although Wolf of Wall Street, I'm still not sure about because I'm waiting to find out the official release date on that because that just got bumped. But anyway, that looks like it will be a bang-up film by Martin Scorsese once again. American Hustle, another bang-up film by David O. Russell, with Robert De Niro, Bradley Cooper, Christian Bale, and yes, the lovely and talented Jennifer Lawrence. Not that the other two aren't lovely and talented, but or three. But anyway, uh, so there's those films that are coming out that look like they'll be good, and I will talk about them on future podcasts. Uh, it might not be Moviecase podcast if I'm doing another kind of podcast. I might just throw it in there. So keep your ears peeled. You will hear about them, and I believe I will probably have to update the Jennifer Lawrence filmography for stuff that I've seen once I've seen a few more of her things. Anyway, by the way, speaking of which, just quickly, stay away from like crazy. That was a strange film. That's the only way I'm gonna explain it. It's a strange film, not what it should. Fine up performances, but not enough to warrant over 2 hours. So anyway, with that, I'm Nate Taves. Thanks for listening to the podcast once again. If you have comments, please write them down on the YouTube page. If you have a YouTube account, if you don't have a YouTube account, don't worry about it. Send me a message on Facebook or write a comment on the Facebook group page. I read them all. I'll get back to you, I promise. It might take me a few hours, might take me a few days based on what it is. Please do not be disrespectful, though. If you do not like what I'm doing or you do not like what I'm saying, by all means state that. Please do so respectfully. I try to be as respectful as I possibly can when I'm picking bones with people. Whether or not I succeed is another story. And with that, I'm Nate Taves. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one, whatever that may be.